Welcome to another Tokyo Xtreme Racer video. Today I'm here to talk about the latest update and also the current state of the game as a whole. After all, we basically passed the halfway mark for the early access phase right now, unless there are any changes to the schedule. But on Steam, the game came out into early access on January 23rd, and it still says that it's supposedly going to stay in early access for about 4 months. 2 of those months have passed by now, so I think it's time to look at where we are right now and see what's expected to happen from this point on. But yeah, first up, let's talk about the new update, because there's some cool stuff in here. First and foremost, the photo mode. A lot of games have this kind of deal, but usually it's just about panning your car around, or panning the camera around the car, both on track or in the garage as right here, and being able to take a nice little screenshot. This one goes far beyond that. Just look at the bottom right and all the options available here. Zoom, tilt, brightness, warmth, tint, gamma, saturation, contrast, focus, sensor size, chromatic aberration, sharpness, film grain, filter, filter intensity, vignette, frame, logo, and for the logo there are a few different other options like vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, logo size, and yeah, that's about it for this. Besides that, we also have the option to change the resolution for the screenshot, so we can go from 720p to Ultra HD. So yeah, that's a huge range of options here. And that's especially nice if you are running at low resolution on your PC. You can even upscale it for the screenshot alone. Besides that, we also can enable a grid or flip the car around. And even if we don't want it, get rid of our own car and make a screenshot like this. If you take a photo, it appears in your Windows Profiles photo folder, so that's also an easy way to get to it if you know about it. So yeah, this is really neat, has a lot of cool options, and the devs have got a lot of praise for it on Reddit already, so yeah, well deserved, I would say. Like, this is definitely made by some people who care about this stuff, and it's really cool to see. So, the next thing, we now get a few more things for the livery creator. So if I go in here, I can now go to sticker and apply a brand logo. So if I go to add new to the rear, I can now put a corporate logo into the rear window. Decide on it, give it another position if you want to. There are 10 available right now. And that seems to be about it. I think a few others might also be able to go onto the side windows or something. But it might be for the car that it only allows the rear one. But yeah, that's it for the brand logos. I wish we could also put them onto the body directly, but for some reason that's not available right now. But there are a few other options for the body now. So if we go to the vinyl section, I can add a new one, and we can also see that there are now options for rival stickers. So we have rival emblems, and yeah, recently I started a new playthrough, so it's not really all available for me right now. But yeah, there are now a lot of options for stuff that you can usually only find on rival cars. So I can now go full rolling guy or rolling master with this one, even though it doesn't really fit onto the master. But yeah, we can put that on, we can change the color. So that's all pretty neat, and of course scale it up and that kind of deal. We can also mirror the image and flip it over on the other side so we can still read it on there. So that's all pretty neat. Let's get out of here again for the next thing. We now also get tire width option. So we can change that around in the arrow menu. If I get to that, there's so many sub-menus that you have to get out of and everything is still a bit slow. But yeah, there are options for this stuff now. So if I go to front and rear, now I should really be selecting the ones that I have already, just so that I can change the tire width, and it's already on maximum. So I could make it a bit more narrow right now. Also, let me check if I change the size of the rims, that doesn't allow me to go any further here, so yeah. Also, it's pretty hard to see what's really changing about this, because it's, yeah. This is my camera angle, and I would really like to be able to pan the camera around to the back to now see how wide the tires have become, but in this screen it doesn't really help me too much. So I'd have to go into this mode, and I mean they should be the same as before. But yeah, this is now an option, which is always nice to see. Another little thing that got added is that in the reference mode we now get the silhouette of the driver of every car. So this is how you can also see what they look like. And yeah, some of them are going to repeat. After all, there's over 200 guys in here, so yeah, that's also going to increase to about twice the number with the final release from what I've seen, or at least at some point we should get many more. And yeah, I get that they cannot make a unique one for every single person. That would be an insane amount of work. Besides that, a few other things that got added. We now get sparks flying if we hit the wall or another car or something. Clutch options have been added, so if you want to drive with a functional clutch, that's also an option now. A few handling changes, which I really enjoy. So honestly, this is the first time of me driving the MX-5 in this game, so I cannot really compare this to anything else. But I noticed that I need to brake a bit more and that the car isn't so fully on rails, so I hope that's really just the general handling changes, because up until this point it's been a bit boring, and I think even what we have now, it's a step in the right direction, but it could go quite a bit further. But yeah, I appreciate it nonetheless, because this is definitely better than what it was before. The AI is also now less likely to hit dividers, so if you have the choice between going left and right, they shouldn't be going for straight on anymore. And also they might move out of your way after a collision. So I had it quite a few times where I got pinched between a wall and a rival, and was basically pit maneuvering the rival into the wall as well. So I was basically, everything was just deadlocked. That might not happen anymore, and we might be able to persuade them to move out of our way if we run into them. Also, there have been a few UI improvements, especially about making everything a bit more consistent and removing a few conflicts in the controls. So for example, if I go to enter course, I choose this entry ramp, and let's say my cursor ended up on the cancel button. I can now confirm anything that I want to do with the cursor using A. B is of course the dedicated cancel button, and confirming is now on X. So yeah, before it was on A, and if the cursor is on here, this would be a conflict between going onto the course and cancelling, but that's been resolved, and that's really good to see here. But yeah, overall, in my opinion, this should really be the only screen that ever gives you a cursor when on controller. Mouse controls for the menus make sense, but only when you're using the mouse. For controller it should just be the same as with any console game. You just get the menu options, and if you hit either the digipad or the left stick, you go between the options, and that should be just about it. Navigating this kinda needs a cursor, but that's really the only menu that requires it. In every single other one, it really just gets in the way. So yeah, that's all cool to see. But let's now talk about the current state of the game and what I think about everything that we have now and where the game is at. Let's just keep cruising a bit while doing it, so that we are not just in the menu for the entire video. And I'm gonna say, for the game coming into early access, it was already pretty far ahead. We have approximately half the game in place and everything is functional. There aren't any like major bugs that keep people from playing. It's all working, it's all functional, and it can be enjoyed already. And it's not like somebody starts it with a new game and you start with one single car that barely functions and that kind of deal. This is all pretty good stuff and feels very far along, so that was pretty good. The thing, however, is that ever since the game came out, progress has really been slow. And I mean that with the latest update as well. The stuff that they put in, the additions made, are pretty neat. But yeah, I don't think it really gives me much to the core concerns that I had before. Part of it has to do with a few bugs and weird other things happening, like the UI once again is kinda abysmal in some ways. Also, just looking back at me trying to quickly show you guys stuff in the livery maker, it takes way too long to get into that. There are way too many submenus and everything needs a bit of loading to get back out again. So that could all be a lot more snappy, hopefully. But also just the whole cursor control, that needs to go. But besides that, I really want to start going a bit more in depth about the current vehicle roster. And for that, you know what, I'm just gonna go into autopilot so I can focus on talking and showing what I mean here. So I made a little list from the TXR Zero fandom, which contains all the vehicles that aren't really in the game right now that were in TXR Zero. I'm not going to go for duplicates, so if there are like multiple of the same car type, of the same franchise, of the same model but with different engine options or that kind of deal, I don't care. I just go for the top model and that's okay. Everything else doesn't really need to be in this game. I already found in TXR Zero that it was more to the detriment that you could buy a car early on only to later run into another version of it that is just objectively better. This way, with only having one model for each generation and that kind of deal of each car, that just removes buyer's remorse at the end of the day. And I also didn't go for anything Honda because I know they have some licensing issues, and while it would absolutely suck not having Honda in this game because they played a major role in Zero, I can understand that it is for some reasons that might be beyond anybody's options here. But even as far as brands that are already in the game, they really don't get enough vehicles. So let me just quickly tap out here and just show you guys the image. So yeah, this is my list of vehicles that I think should be in the game. Doesn't mean that everything needs to be in here, but I feel like some of these not being in the game feels like a major omission. So I start with regular cars, so things that are native to Japan. Then there's also going to be a few foreign models from Zero that were included there, and also later games. And also a few exotics that I just feel like are too cool not to have. But then let's start with regular models, so regular cars that you should be able to buy. For Subaru, there isn't really all that much. In Zero there was the Legacy, both as a sedan and wagon version, and they also had a lot of Impreza wagon versions. I would like to have at least some of these as options. I know in Zero they had 4-door Imprezas, 2-door Imprezas, and the same range for the wagons, and I don't think we need everything here, but maybe a few of them would be nice. Maybe one of the older ones could be coming as a 2-door option. Maybe some would be 4-door sedan, or 4-door wagons, I mean. Just have a bit of variety in that kind of deal. That would be really nice. For the Legacy, I don't care too much, but once again, having another model as an option would be kind of neat. I feel a bit more strongly about Mitsubishi because that really feels like they got the short end of the stick here. In Zero we had the Lancia Evo from 3 to 7. In this one we got the 5 and 10, I think. So there could be a few more to be added here, which would be neat to have. Of course the FTO, which would be a more entry-level Mitsubishi, so it wouldn't be available only past the halfway point at this point. Assuming that the current end of early access content is about at the halfway point, and right now there are just things that I feel are missing. Besides that, the Eclipse from generation 2 and 3, I think the one that we have right now is 4th generation, but the other two are a bit more well liked, I would say. Also potentially generation 1, although that looks like a really niche car that I haven't seen too often, so wouldn't be too fussed about that one either way. The Sterion, which is basically the predecessor to the Mitsubishi GTO. And also one of my personal things that I would like to see in here, which wasn't really in Zero, the Mitsubishi Geland. That's like a 4-door, 280 horsepower, 4-wheel drive sedan. So this is a bit more of a larger car than the Lancia, but pretty sporty, pretty cool looking. I think there were also a few other variants of it, but I remember there being one that's 4-wheel drive. Anyways, let's move on to Toyota. The Sora. Definitely want the Sora in this game. Same for the Celica GT4, so that's the mid-90s generation there. There's also front-wheel drive Celicas, so that's for one the same generation as the GT4, looks pretty much identical but with a different drivetrain. And also the later generation, the much more the one with the sharper edges and that kind of deal. The MR2, talking about the mid-90s version here. There's also a really boxy looking 80s one, which I wouldn't be against having as well, but the 90s one is absolutely iconic. The MRS, I mean, it was in Zero, I wasn't really too fussed about that ever, but would be nice to have as well. Aristo, which is a larger sedan kind of deal, a bit more luxury. Celsior, which is another similar thing. The Altezza, I mean, come on. And the Sedgwick. For Mazda, I didn't find too many ones. There are, I think, a few minor ones like a predecessor to the RX-7, which I missed putting on the list. There were a few really old vehicles in Zero, which I wouldn't be against having, but don't need all of them. But yeah, the Lantis and the Autozam, those are kind of big deals. I mean, the Lantis would be more of an entry-level front-wheel drive car, but it's kind of a neat one. Nissan, Still 80. I know it's been deconfirmed, but I mean, come on, please find a way. Skyline DR30, so that's the older, more like mid-80s version of the Skyline, and also rear-wheel drive versions of them. Since they are functionally different from the four-wheel drive versions, I think they would be cool to have in this game. And since we already have Skylines modeled, I think they shouldn't be too much of a stretch to be added. The Zafiro, I don't know how to pronounce that one. It's another one of those luxury larger sedans. There were entire teams in Zero about that. So having a bit more presentation to that end would be neat. The Stagia, which is a large station wagon, that can also have a front face swap with the R34 Skyline, which looks amazing, and I would like that to be in the game. The Pulsar, which is more like a smaller hatchback, a bit similar to the Honda Civic hatchback from the late 90s. Also, the 1969 Fairlady DZ. Can't see why that isn't in the game already. But yeah, that's it for the regular cars. Let's talk about the foreign ones that were in earlier TXR games. BMW M3 E36. So that's an oldie but a goodie and pretty iconic in that game. Always loved having it. The Porsche 911 964. Both turbocharged and naturally aspirated. Dodge Viper. There was an entire team of Vipers on this part of the map, and god, it would be amazing to have that back. And in TXR 3, the C4 and C5 Corvette. I mean, I love those cars, what else can I say? And for a few exotics, I won't be getting into too many there because the earlier games went a bit crazy with the rivals, especially Zero. Like, one of the major opponents there was driving an R34 Skyline outfitted with a JGTC body kit. It looked amazing, was amazing, but I don't think we are going to see anything like that anymore. But yeah, the Abflug Supra and the R33 LM road car would be amazing to have again. And yeah, there's also so many other vehicles that could be added, because after all, this is a list from about 20-year-old game at this point. And this is really just the things that were in that game that are kinda missing from this one. In those 20 years, there have been a few other cars that came out that could still also be added. But yeah, I won't be getting into that because honestly I didn't pay attention too much to car culture after that. And also that would be way too long for the video. I've already talked more about this than I was meaning to. But yeah, there are a lot of things that I would like to see, and I hope we get them at some point. Okay, let's maybe do another battle here while talking about the last few points. So there are still a few things missing that I would... there were a few things in TXR Zero that I would like to see here. And some of them are tuning options, some of them are just slightly different changes to how things are handled right now. For example, I would like to have the option that if I'm in front of my rival, I should say where the battle goes. So if we go into an intersection, I should be the one at that point determining where the whole thing goes, and yeah, right now, basically we always have to adhere to whatever the rival wants to have, and that kinda sucks. Makes it harder to plan out the route, and especially if we get something like Yesu back, then that would really only be useful if we got the option to get people onto that route. But yeah, let's talk about the tuning options, which TXR Zero had, that this game right now is lacking. To be clear, Zero had nothing in terms of livery creator. a lot of cars had a two-tone color option. You could maybe put on a rival sticker, and that was about it. And the rival sticker was only at the front window and maybe the back window, and also you maybe had a very small logos on the sides or something. It wasn't really anything major. But yeah, in terms of aero tuning, it had a few more things to offer. So for example, wide body tuning. Every car had a wide fender kit and it looked amazing. In some cases it was just really adding wider fender flares, and that was about it. But other vehicles had like a full wide body kit if you equipped it, and it just looked really cool, and it's a shame that we didn't get that in this one yet. I don't know if it's going to be coming, but I've seen that Melancholic Angel has a wide body kit that we cannot currently access for ourselves unless we buy that car, and that's really the only one that has it. So I hope that's more a hint of something to come for later down the line instead of being the exception to the rule. Also, besides that, TXR Zero just had more aero parts. More spoilers, more bumpers, more side skirts. There were 5 for each and for each car. So 5 for each options, and everything was available for every car apart from the special ones that really weren't upgradable at all, apart from power tuning and that kind of deal. But yeah, regular cars had all the tuning options and it was the same across the board. I get that they can't really put in all that much all the time, but maybe especially for spoilers there could be a few generic options that maybe would be transferable between cars. So something like a Forza Aero, but multiple options in different styles. That would be neat. Also, a big thing for me in TXR Zero, they had headlight options. And especially for things like pop-up headlights, they basically changed the entire look of the cars, because you always got the option to remove the pop-up headlights, put fixed headlights and glass into the sockets. So that always looked very different than stock and really gave the entire car a completely different character. But yeah, we don't have anything like that in the game right now, and I think that's a crying shame. Besides that, we also had the option to change out the front grille on cars that had a front grille. So maybe debadging, removing the chrome or stuff like that. There were a few options like that, and I would like to see that again. Also, mirror option. There were like 2 or 3 aftermarket mirrors, and yeah, kinda a shame that it's not available anymore. To be clear, when it came to the aero options, when I said 5 bumpers, skirts, spoilers and all that, that were aftermarket options. So stock was one option, or was basically the 0 option, and then 5 in addition to that instead of the 3 that we got right now. And I think that is a decently significant difference. Although in TXR Zero those were performance parts, the later ones were lighter. So you shouldn't ever really be using the ones that look the best to you, unless that's also the latest one that you got. And I like that in this game they are not using that mechanic, and it's really just about the way you want to style your vehicle. But yeah, more aero options would be really nice to have in general. And also simple things like, why are there completely different aero options for the AE86 Corolla 11 than for the Sprinter Torino? They have basically the same back profile, and the spoiler should be fitting onto either without any adjustments. But yeah, I think that's all for the tuning right now. Let's talk about a few other minor things, and I think for that we need to get back into the menus one more time. So let me just beat this guy, and then we can go back and have a look at the last few points. Also just got the long run bonus, which is nice. I guess all the autopilot stuff helped with that. So the last thing, or one of the last things, has to do with the car unlocks. And I gotta say, this might be partially down to the early access phase right now and there being more cars coming, but as it is, I don't really like how it's handled. First up, for the most part, for me having to beat about 200 rivals to get to the end of the current phase, which is currently the end of the content in early access, I think I'm not getting enough cars in general, and the ones that I get aren't really strong enough, especially considering that I can encounter 280 horsepower vehicles like the Impreza, like the Levorg, even in the first phase. If you go to the C1 outer line, you will encounter them as part of, what is it, departures or something? So that happens very early on, despite you being restricted to very early game vehicles. So yeah, I think that should be rebalanced, that weaker vehicles are more at the front, and at some point you will get to the stronger ones. Even right now I have to deal with Skylines, with Supras, so that's all the sports cars with 280 horsepower roughly. And my own one, if I go to collection, I should be able to see that. This one has about 100 horsepower less, so that's really not amazing. And realistically, I don't think I should be able to keep up with those, despite me being a bit lighter. But yeah, I think there should be a balance so that weaker cars come a bit earlier and consistently earlier, and then later down the line you're going to see the more high-end stuff, and not mix it as much as they have right now, because that kinda is a bit unfair. I mean, you basically have to defeat Eternal Polaris with her R33 Skyline with an almost stock car, and that shouldn't really be happening at all. So yeah, that's one thing. Also, it's really weird how some of the unlocks are kinda weaker than what you start with. I'm talking about stuff like the Atenza over here, which I think should be maybe one of the starter options. Would make more sense for me than anything like the Roadstar Ice over here, because it feels like the Miatas or Oinos Roadsters, whatever, they should be all separate, and once you unlock them you get to choose which generation you want to go for, and not just have one of them at the starter, and if you want to maybe use the first or second gen, that's what you have to unlock and buy later. For stuff that has multiple generations like that, or multiple other variants like the AE86 over here, maybe either make both of them available or let them be cars that that you get access to later down the line. But yeah, I would definitely say that this would be a better or a more sensible starter car than what we've gotten here. Maybe even the Excella as well. I don't really know what its power level is right now. But yeah, the stuff that we get earlier feels like it should be stronger than these here. And it's not like the game is using any class system where the starter cars are in a lower class and cannot compete with the later ones. You can upgrade everything to high-end levels at the end, what it seems like. And yeah, I think that's about everything here that I wanted to talk about. I mixed up the last points a bit, But yeah, to be clear, I think having to defeat about 200 rivals to get to something like the Fair Lady Z over here, or the Chaser, and then also the actual sports cars and everything, like the older gen Supra, the Mark III right here. I think some of them should be coming in a bit earlier. It feels like a really long grind before you get to those. I get that there's going to be 200 more rivals in the end, and it might shake down a little bit different once we get all of those in place. But I feel like some of the stuff should be coming in a bit earlier, but I'm not too sure, and that might be a real problem. I don't know if there would be much after the current endgame cars. I don't know if you can add anything much stronger than the Skylines and the Fairly DZs, the Supras, etc. So, yeah. Japanese car culture is kinda kept off at that point, it seems. That might be more for foreign cars like the Viper, which can go with quite a bit more horsepower, but yeah, compared to that, Skylines, etc. are quite a bit more tame. But yeah, I wish we got some of these a bit earlier, and then later down the line, maybe at towards the halfway point, we should be able to access these vehicles as well. But again, there might be a more solid plan for that, with all the new cars in mind that hopefully get added. But yeah, we'll have to see about it. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the meta. Again, I don't want to be mean to the game or anything. I want to see it succeed, and I think yeah, this kind of feedback at this point is necessary for hopefully seeing improvements later down the line. I hope that the unexpected reception of the game might even lead them to do the early access stuff a bit longer, really file down some of those rough edges, and then get the game into 1.0 in an amazing state. And maybe they are just holding back on some of the content that shouldn't be in early access, and they only want that for the 1.0 version. So maybe there's a lot more stuff coming that we are just not aware about or aware of, but we'll have to see. And right now, from what I'm seeing here, I'm not 100% confident, but I hope the best, and we'll see how it all pans out. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, see you guys next time, and until then, as always, have a good one, and bye bye.